where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We urge you to please mute your TV or other device that you may be watching the show on prior to taking the call, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less would be greatly appreciated. The following topics will be discussed. We have a 2021 beach operations recap with recommendations for year 2022. 17 Hawthorne, this is a UR map modification request. And then we also have an emergency communications update and phase 2 SECRA. That'll be followed by liaison reports, and we do have a few resolutions to approve today. So without any further ado, let's go to the phone lines and hear from the public.
Okay, absolutely. I'll unmute the first caller. I just want to let everyone know there was a small delay on the YouTube for a second, but it's up and running now, so we are 100% for everything. And I shall unmute the first caller. Okay, let's get this up and running. And hello, caller ending 2866. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, good morning. This is Jackie Esposito calling from Springs. I'm on Lincoln Avenue. I am calling about 17 Hawthorne. I have to say I'm not entirely clear on what the UR map modification means. I've tried to dig in a bit, but I imagine that the public would benefit from having a very clear, detailed description of what is before the board. I don't think UR map modification probably really resonates with the public. That said, as I understand it, I believe a developer is trying to build a home on a vacant lot that is adjacent to open and recreation space that, as I understand it, was purchased by the town with funds designated for open and recreation space, and that the developer, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is attempting to build a home that is large enough, that is so large that it would require sort of counting the open and recreation space towards overall buildable square feet. And again, I might be incorrect, but I think we would all benefit from having a very clear explanation from the town board or from Mr. Jolnicki about what exactly is at issue here. And I do want to say, I know some of the board members know this already, but this particular neighborhood is probably like others in Springs is under pretty heavy development. It's already densely populated, as we know, you all know, but the development in the past 12 months has been bigger than anything I've seen here. So the open space is very important. I know that the neighbors have called and have requested that the woodlands be included in the town's nature preserve. I think this discussion today can't really be had without thinking about the woodlands and the importance of protecting those and preserving those. We really do need to take a look at the open and recreation space. I know that was an issue that some of you ran on. And so, when you're having this discussion today, I hope that you can keep that in mind. And that's all. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in, Jackie. And we hope the purpose of the work session discussion today about the UR map modification is to help inform the public and the board as to the specifics of the request. So stay tuned, and I think there'll be some more clarity as a result.
I shall unmute the next caller. Hello, caller.
My name is Paul. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go first. You hear me. It's all good. Bye.
Okay. My name is Paul Piandella, and I'm from East Hampton, between Amagansett and East Hampton, near the village. And I just wanted to point out to the board that on December 18th, I wrote a letter to the East Hampton Star, which was endorsed by the East Hampton Star editorial, which suggested what we might call an alternative or a different plan for how to deal with the problem of affordable housing in East Hampton. That plan suggested that senior housing be used as the method by which we increase the supply of housing, and also dealt with some of our other problems in East Hampton having to do with open space, preservation, and traffic. I like to call that Plan B because I'm assuming there is a Plan A. And in order to develop Plan B, I think it's really necessary to get some facts, answer some questions, and meet with some experts. So what I'd like to ask the board to enable me to do is to sit down with the relevant person from the planning board who's involved with housing and planning for housing in the town, so that I can go over this Plan B with them and get their comments as to its strengths and defects. I think that information would be quite useful to the board, quite useful to the public, and might actually solve the affordable housing problem. Can I get your support? Hello?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, I have to admit I haven't read your letter to the Star outlining what you think is the best solution for dealing with affordable housing. I will say that the town has decided to fully engage all 5 town board members in an effort to make inroads into the housing crisis at this time. And there are a number of different aspects that we are looking at, from developing properties that we currently own to looking at additional properties for acquisition, developing our community housing fund plan, which will decide how we distribute funds collected through the 0.5% tax, transfer tax, provided that it passes the referendum in November. We're looking at seasonal housing. We're looking at year-round housing, rental, homeownership, assistance to first-time home buyers, subsidizing the costs of purchasing homes and taking the underlying interest in the property. But, we'll take a look at what you've written and decide if that's going to be helpful.
Well, I think all I'd like to do is sit down with the planners and make what I wrote more relevant by analyzing. I'm a detailed person, and my background is in computer science, so I like to look at every aspect of a proposal and flesh it out. And I really do think I need to sit down with a planner who has experience in this area of, where to locate housing and et cetera, and go over what I call Plan B and see whether it has any merit. And then it can be brought back to the board by me in a more fleshed out form, and you can use it whichever way you will. But I do believe that, it's sort of like you have to investigate something. Somebody proposes a solution, it has to be worked out. And I'm the person proposing the solution. So I would like to work this out with some of the resources available to the public by the town. And I don't think it's too much to ask to meet with a planner. I've done this in the past many times, but I do want your endorsement to do that. This doesn't mean you have to accept anything that comes back from me or anything. It simply means that we'll be able to give you a better proposal to work with, because, you just reviewed a whole number of things that you're going to look at. So you look at all these things and basically allow me to develop a Plan B, which may have some things in common, may be different, but you're the ultimate deciding force. At least you'll have in front of you the facts. So can I get your endorsement to meet with them?
Yeah, Paul, I'm not really prepared to commit town resources, planning department resources, staff resources at this time to your idea without even having had a chance to look at your letter that you're talking about that was published in the newspaper.
December 18th, the letter and the editorial was on the same issue.
We do appreciate your interest, and thanks for calling.
Moving on to the next caller. Let me just go and unmute them right now. Okay. Hello, caller ending 7567. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's Joe Sigilia. I'm calling from the Springs, and I'm calling about the emergency communications update. And it's hard to know what comments to make because the materials aren't on the website. So I guess what I would ask is, I know the board has done this in the past, to reopen up the phone lines for public comment after the presentation so people can make, I know there are a number of people that would like to comment on this, can comment after we see what the presentation is, when we can make more informed comments if that's possible today.
Yeah, that should be on the town website.
Yeah. It's on there. It's on.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I looked both at the agenda for today and as well as the emergency communications page on the town website. And as of an hour ago, I didn't see the presentation from today in either of those places. If it's somewhere else,
It's currently on the website, Joe.
Yeah.
It's under the document center. It's on the town homepage. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, if you go to the homepage
Under
and
the
you click on, scroll down and it says Town Board Work Session Presentations and Documents. It'll take you to the January 11th meeting. And there you will find the the fourth item down, Emergency Communications Upgrade, EAF 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll look there.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, moving on to the next caller, Mr. Supervisor.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, caller ending 1131. You're on the air. Hello.
Yes, hi, board. This is Lisa Legalia. How are you today? I was also calling about what was on the agenda for 17 Hawthorne, and I think I would like to also wait to see what you had to say to describe what you had planned for that area. But just wanted to make a comment also, as you know, recreation and open spaces in this neighborhood are limited, and for a small space like that to be bought up for a home is something I'm sure that, you know, it's done often, but there is very limited open space in the area, which is very overdeveloped and densely populated, as we've mentioned many times in the past, and you know. So I just wanted to put forward my support for making the Crandall Norfolk Woodlands a nature preserve if we could. And I would like to know if it's possible if you could send me a form so we could actually fill out, that's required by the town board to submit our request to include the Crandall Norfolk Woodlands in the town's nature preserve. Is it possible for you to send me that form so we could put forward our request?
I don't know that we have a specific form, Lisa, for that purpose. I think it's simply just a request. You can just write a letter saying that you would request that. There's no specific form that I'm aware of.
Okay, so then we would just send
Lisa,
you a letter.
what happens with any request for nature, Lisa, based on the town code, any request for nature preserve status would actually be a request to the town board, which will then get directed to the Nature Preserve Committee for vetting.
So just send an email. If you just send an email or a letter with your request to the town board.
Okay, we will do that. Okay, great. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Lisa. Take care.
Okay, unmuting
You
next
too.
caller. Hello, caller ending 8046. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, my name is Lisa Steiner, and I live on Broadway across from the 17 Hawthorne Street. Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So I just walked that lot yesterday. I live right across the street from there. And if any of you were to walk over there and look at that lot, you would be shocked that anyone would want to develop it. It's the lot itself borders 5 houses, so it's like it should never even be considered for development. And let's not forget that it's in zoning district residence B, which requires a building lot size of 20,000 square feet. The town bought lot 41 and 42 for open space and to preserve the character of the town of East Hampton and to prevent substandard lots from being combined for developers to build more homes where they should not add to the already densely populated area. I urge you not to issue a favorable recommendation to the town planning board for this modification. And I also feel like this issue is something that is going to come up over and over and over again if we don't address these old filed map lots, which are being combined by developers to build in areas that are high density, and it's just wrong. And if we created this fund and bought all these open space lots for the sole purpose of preserving space, why is this even going in front of the planning board? It's absurd. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for calling, Lisa.
That's all.
Be well.
Unmuting next caller. 1 second. Let me get this. Hello, 8764. You're on the air.
Good morning. It's David Boot. I'd like to briefly discuss 3 matters. The first one I did see, and I am very familiar with the location on the town website for placement of the work session materials in advance. So again, I appreciate you continuing to maintain that tradition, and I hope that one day you'll do the same thing for public hearings that are to be held during your regular meetings as well. There's probably even more of a reason to present to the public in advance of public hearings relevant documents. I did find the proposed EAF, and I want to just make one suggested correction. It looks like someone has overstated the height of the town communication tower at 365 Montauk Highway. It's not a new 300-foot tall lattice tower. Perhaps once it was to be considered to be that height, but in fact, as built, it's 180 feet overall height above ground, and if you include the appurtenances on the top, it comes out at 194 feet. Second topic, although I greatly appreciate the wonderful town employees and some of the very long-serving department heads, and especially Ed Michaels does a great job and has always been a conscientious and diligent employee, but his retirement payout triggers an opportunity to make some general comments, not directed specifically to him, or not necessarily specifically to him. As someone who is very conscious of the impact of town property taxes on the community, on our aging community, who likes to age in place in their homes, I have to encourage you to reconsider the existing town policies that enable your workers to accrue and year after year for many, many years certain unpaid, untaken benefits. And the end result, as I understand it, is we've had now in the past couple of months, including Mr. Michaels, two employees who have retired with packages that are over $200,000, which frankly once upon a time was just unheard of. In the private sector, people aren't allowed to accrue and receive benefits at the termination or retirement, the benefit of at their final salary rate, all accrued sick and personal days. And the result, I believe, is that you wind up paying not only large lump sums, but you then have to, that then becomes part of their final year's salary, which then becomes part of their calculation of their benefit package, which I believe then also triggers an obligation on the town's part to contribute more money to the pension fund. So it's a triple lose, lose, lose as far as I'm concerned. In 2016, the town did show some common sense and established an employment policy for department heads, which unfortunately is not clear from your proposed resolution today whether or not it's been adhered to. You will recall that when your former planning department director left after many years and her final payout was calculated, it turned out that there was an error made because someone had apparently not taken into account the limitation that the town's policy since 2016 has placed to establish a 640-hour or 80-day maximum that department heads can receive for vacation pay accrued unless more was earned prior to February 1st of 2016. It's therefore important, since a mistake was once made with regard to Margaret Wolfson, which resulted in having to subsequently adopt a resolution to take back, I think, about $17,000, that with respect to recently retired department heads and presently pending retirement for Mr. Michaels, that you clarify whether or not the appropriate policy has been put into place. The resolution should be clearer as to whether or not there was a limitation placed based on that policy. So that's my comment with regard to accrual of uncollected benefits. By the way, I've never been a fan of the notion that someone should get paid for not being sick and not using sick days. I always thought that sick days and personal days were designed as a humanitarian consideration of people getting sick and not losing money from their salary. But the idea that you can accrue them and receive at termination $3,500 hours of sick and personal days, to me, is not the way the town government should run when it takes into consideration the taxpayers. Now, the third topic, since some people have already spoken about it, I'll be extremely brief. I, of course, am very familiar with the Urban Renewal Plan practices and policies. I think that the one that you're about to discuss today is abhorrent and improper and illegal, because what it essentially seeks to do is to split one existing UR parcel map that was created as a 14,000 square foot buildable lot, to split it into two without a variance, without a site plan application, and to allow the building of a massive new McMansion, if you will, on a 10,000 square foot area in an area that's zoned for 20,000 square feet. The town in the early 2000 era was smart enough to establish a $5 million bond fund called Small Lots Acquisition Fund, because at that time the common wisdom was that the CPF could not be used simply to reduce density to acquire small lots. Of course, now you all have come to the new realization that pocket parts is something that you can use CPF money to purchase. Well, back then you couldn't, so the town went ahead, created a $5 million fund. You went ahead and bought a whole bunch of properties. Many of them were complete UR map parcels. Some were partial UR map parcels. And what then happens is you should have, the town board, not you because none of you were there, the town board should have then pursued purchasing using the buy-sell provisions in your town code for UR map parcels, and you should have pursued purchasing at fair value a remaining portion of this and other unbuildable UR map lots. This particular lot was purchased after a tax foreclosure sale for a minimal amount of $27,000 by the current owner. He's looking to flip it for hundreds of thousands of dollars to a builder. And he had no right to sell it as a buildable lot because it's not a buildable lot. If you, the town, use your rights under the UR Code, Chapter 232, you have the right to acquire the property at fair value, either by negotiation or by condemnation, and for the benefit of the neighborhood, that's what should occur. And I look forward to your discussion today, and of course you've already pre-scheduled a public hearing for the 20th, which I will participate in more full detail if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay. On to the next caller. Hello, caller ending 7137. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, it's John Tarbick calling. Happy New Year, board. So I do represent Mike Forrest, who is the applicant on the urban renewal map modification that David Buda just spoke about. And can I just ask that you can hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes. Go ahead, John. Welcome.
Okay, great. Okay, great. It's just, thanks. It's just, sometimes you don't know. Could be talking to myself. So I did hear, I had the opportunity to hear a number of people call in this morning regarding this application, and a lot of the stuff they're saying is simply not true. But I understand that you're going to schedule for a public hearing, so I'm just wondering if I should wait for the public hearing to say our side of things. That we just wait for?
I'll leave that to you, John, to decide. We are going to be discussing in work session today, and I think that's what solicited the number of calls that we've had about the parcel.
Okay, so if there's a chance that it would not go to a public hearing on it, I'll speak now. So leaving aside all of the accusations about how much the applicant, that stuff's probably immaterial. What I would like to just focus on is that this lot, as the board's very familiar with, the urban renewal law was a way of forcing people to come together and build one lot build one house where multiple houses could have been built. So the lot the town owns and the lot that Mike Forreston contract to purchase were meant to be combined. And at some point, the town, which I think everybody would acknowledge was sort of, I don't want to use the word unethical, but it was sort of a dirty pool to buy one of the lots that you needed to build and then force or sterilize the other lot by doing that. So now we've run into a situation where not just this lot, but there's a few lots around town where the town owns one of the urban renewal parcels that's meant to be combined to build a home. I think the board should probably rely on, rather than David, and nothing, I thought David Buddha was fine. I don't think that you should rely on him for legal advice, but maybe on the town attorney's office, and then for advice in general from the planning board, which did discuss it and has recommended to the town board that it be scheduled for a public hearing. So I would just like to refocus the town board on both the town attorney's office and the planning board, both who I believe have weighed in on this. And I think it'd be really important to have a public hearing, and I think scheduling one today would be the right thing to do. Again, I guess theoretically the town, there's basically just two options here, and maybe those can be more fully discussed at a public hearing. But one would be that you amend the urban renewal map as the planning board is suggesting, and the other would be that David Buddha was correct. Theoretically, you could purchase through a forced sale type process the other lot and preserve it for open space. But it's interesting that on today's agenda is well, at least was discussed today, was community housing and low-income housing, or just community housing, really. These small lots, if the town were to go through and purchase these small lots, you would. This is a lot that's meant to be bought by Mike Forrest, who's a member of the fire department with me. He wants to build a home for one of his two kids on the property. As we sterilize these lots, you lose an opportunity for a local person to have a house. Not everybody can start out with a $3 million home, and that's where we're at this point. So while maybe the town board does want to go through and purchase these lots, I think a lot of the neighbors' comments are based on we all would like the town to purchase the lot next to us and make it open space. I know I would, but the reality is, especially in this neighborhood, this is where we're left as far as affordable lots to build on. And if I don't see why the town would want to buy it for open space, but that of course would be your call. However, the planning board has recommended that you amend the urban renewal map. I think that's all my comments.
Thank you for calling, John.
Okay. On to next caller. All right. Hello, caller ending 3099. You're on the air. Hello. I'm hearing something for a second there. Oh, hi. Yes, hello.
Hi, this is Bonnie Brady calling. I have some questions regarding, apparently there's going to be some work on Milkiona Road. And in the
paperwork that I finally read this morning, it says that an 88-foot tower, those of you that are on the town board might remember, Peter, I know you do, about 3 years ago when there was initial discussion about that tower, I come to the board and we were told we would be informed as things were moving along, et cetera. I know I spoke to Joanne at length, and I happened to find out that apparently there's work that's going to be done fairly quickly on those, I'm talking about the poles at the Gator site, with the possible removal of 2 poles and putting in poles that are, I'm not sure if they're radio frequency poles, if they're 5G poles or whatever, but those of us that live on that street are a little bit concerned because we haven't had anyone reach out to us.
Bonnie, I believe, and we can ask the question when we get Eddie Schnell back on during the work session discussion about the emergency communications update. But I believe the poles that are there will be, it'll be a drop and swap and replacing, I think, the existing poles with steel poles, and those are for the emergency communication system.
I guess my concern too, Peter, is that there are bald eagles that are not nesting in that area, but they are in that area. And I was just curious about what kind of equipment. Those of us don't know. So I'm actually at an appointment with my daughter's doctor, so I have to leave this phone call. But if we could follow up afterwards, I'd like to be able to get more information to be able to disseminate to other people.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to reach out to my office, I'll be happy to share what we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling, Bonnie.
Okay, and unmuting next caller. Hello, caller ending 7548. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi, this is Richard Whalen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Richard. Good morning.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to what John Tarbett said earlier. I heard David Buda's comments and John's comments. I actually have a couple of clients in a similar situation, and I won't go into that right now. But the bottom line is, John accurately described what happened back in the early 2000s. I think it was around 2005. The town board agreed to buy parts of urban renewal parcels, didn't notify the owners of the remaining parts of the UR parcels that they were buying a part of that parcel with open space money. And, so those property owners now are kind of stuck. Either the town board needs to proceed and buy the rest of the parcel, or it needs to, amend the urban renewal plan to allow the remaining parcel to be built on. But this is a situation that was created, as John said, in the early 2000s when the town board knowingly bought parts of urban renewal parcels, and with money that would prevent the town from ever combining the parcels to be built on in the future. So that's all my comments. I mean, I'll deal with my own things later on, but I think John Tarbett accurately described what occurred. Thank you.
Thanks for calling, Richard.
Mr. Supervisor, we have no new callers on the line, but we had that one caller earlier who was looking for documents, and they're still on there. May I circle back to them?
Sure.
Okay. 7567, you still on?
Yeah, I found the documents. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Did you want to still have your to talk, or are we good?
No, we're good. Thanks.
All right, 100%. Thank you very much. Okay, with
Thanks
that said,
very much. At this point, then we will close the public portion and move on to the topic of discussion. And the first one up is the 2021 beach operations recap and recommendations for 2022. Councilman David Lease has been the liaison to the Beach Advisory Committee, which we formed at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic to deal with questions about how to operate the beach safely. Our plan that we developed actually became the model for Suffolk County. And we certainly appreciate everyone who's participated in that committee. We had a very successful first 2020 summer, considering what we were up against, and last year was no exception, but there are a few recommendations I think the committee has moving forward. And I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor. Jason, there might be other members of our town staff in the waiting room.
Yes, I have. Who would you like me to let in? I have. I think I have Eddie Schnell, Jay Rooney, M. Sarlo, Severo, Khrushchev.
Severo, Christofich, Chief Sarlo, John Rooney, please.
Of course. And they're being let in right now.
Thank you very much, Peter. I have members of some of our Beach Advisory Committee with us, including Chief Sarlo, Severo Christofich from Buildings and Grounds, and John Rooney, who is the Superintendent of the Parks and Recreation, which oversees our beaches and our town lifeguards. I'm going to do a screen share here, Jason, and everyone. Please let me know when it comes through. Give me one moment to set it up.
Okay.
Please let me know, everyone, if this is coming in clear.
Got it loud and clear.
Good, David.
Thank you very much. I think the supervisor set it up perfectly 2 years ago, beginning of 2020. We were under executive order beach restrictions by then governor at the time. Those were actually reinforced into early 2021 and changed. But we had a working committee to work through these issues, and it's provided a very tight way of communications for all the elements of our beaches, which are numerous. And as we all know, I firmly believe that our beaches are one of our economic engines and most precious natural resources that we have in the town of East Hampton. Moving forward, it's the same as we did in years past, a couple of new names on here. These are the individuals, part of our recovery and advisory group. Moving forward, we now have Tim Treville, who is our senior harbor master, and a change, and congratulations to Barnaby Friedman, who now is the chief of the East Hampton Ocean Rescue. As we move forward, in response to the unprecedented worldwide health emergency that was on March 13th of 2020, declared state of emergency, the Parks and Recreation Department, in light of the COVID-19 virus, we had to make recommendations for the safe use of public bathing beaches during the lifeguard and recreational facilities opening hours. We did the same for summer 2020. We did the same for summer 2021. We're here to make the same for summer 2022 moving forward. Our action plan included recommendations for lifeguard operations, safety protocols for lifeguards, developing beach rules at that time for state guidance, which we had to do still for 2022, COVID-specific signage, which we placed, comfort station openings and custodial protocols. We amended our beach operating permits for 2021 that we get from Suffolk County Health Department. We coordinated our enforcement efforts, and we developed beach capacity decrease methods as per state guidelines. We did have to go into 2021 with decreased beach capacity until that got changed on the fly. I believe it was just after Memorial Day. The town lifeguard recap on here. I don't think John Ryan, who is a teacher, Chief John Ryan, is with us today. I'll go over there very quickly. It was a very successful season, providing water safety, waterproofing the town, as we know. We employed 115 lifeguards for the 2021 season, 89 lifeguards and 26 officers. This is the first year, as you might remember, that the town beaches were divided into operational districts. Each were under direct supervision of a newly created district chief and assistant chief, which allowed the department or the operations of the lifeguards to work more specifically focused and targeted into those areas. The areas primarily were Montauk District and then Amagansett District. We adapted life-saving techniques to a COVID-19 exposure. We continue with that. The town lifeguards use Rangers and ATVs effectively to maintain safety this year again, because what we were finding is a lot of individuals were separating at town beaches, and they were moving further east or west to find separation from others then too. We provided adaptive certification testing for lifeguards. We certified 36 Stillwater lifeguards, 58 ocean lifeguards, and we certified 85 ocean lifeguards, which many of them fall under our ocean rescue team, which Councilman Burke-Gonzalez last week mentioned, and numerous ones, and they're on call 365, no days off, 365, 24/7. So they have to research, and we're able to do that. We also, with support, particularly from the Montauk CAC and other parents, we designed and completed another important season, the junior lifeguarding program. Our enrollment is a little skewed, in which it was increased by 152%, but that's compared to 2020. Overall, our enrollment in the junior program is 358 children, and now the NIPR program was 103 children, which is, to me, it's a very, it's laying a groundwork and for successful waterproofing for years to come in our community. Recommendations for the lifeguards for 2022. Chief John Ryan continues wanting the needed outreach to resorts and hotels and unprotected beaches to see if they would be able to staff certified lifeguards in those areas. Remember, we did have a death close in that peak 2 years ago, close to unprotected beaches by resorts. The continued use of technology for public safety. Using drone technology, successfully we're able to navigate looking for distressed swimmers, also for beach capacity. Chief John Ryan is looking into additional research being done to acquire sonar devices that they can use in their personal watercraft fleet that will be able to fast attack the search for rescue capabilities. We know we have that type of sonar capacity on our large marine vessels, but as a quick action response, he wants to look at sonar devices that are being deployed in other municipalities. Continue the travel lanes at the back of the beach is successful. One thing that we mentioned multiple years now is the need for a unified rescue barn in Montauk. This would be not just for town lifeguards, but for emergency services and also our aging PD infrastructure. Our PD building right now is out. Our capacity, our demand, and our needs are far out exceeding what we have as infrastructure. So a potential new location that we can unify that together in Montauk, it's still being, the committee still wants to recommend that. We continue the junior lifeguard program for 2022, and we open all bathing beaches on the same schedule in 2022.
David, before you go on, can we just talk about your first bullet point?
Sure.
So how do we go about that? I mean, we make a suggestion that's,
So per some of the conversation that I had at the Montauk CAC on this last night, this was tried in the early 1980s, and there became liability and safety issues within the health department. They did not move it forward. Chief Sarlo, do you have other intel or information onto that? If we outreached, if they wanted to do that through, through the health department, if not, sorry.
Very similar that it had been tried in the past, and there were a lot of hurdles to getting it approved. With public right-of-ways and beach access, some of those properties are not actually private property, and setting up a bathing beach and having it meet the guidelines for certification by the Department of Health can be very challenging in some of these areas. I know there were liability concerns, and some of the public beach access, particularly in downtown Montauk, is the beachfront. Some of the hotels are between the town protected areas, and delineating who's responsible for employing a lifeguard and what their zone would be and how much property they would need to cover when you start moving out to the locations on the Nat Peak stretch, et cetera. It's just an extremely challenging operation for them to try to undertake as private entities. And, we appreciate and respect the lifeguards' concerns that there's miles and miles of unprotected beaches, yet there's commercial operations in front of them. However, getting over that hurdle to have them adequately staff with certified lifeguards, which we already struggle to find for our town beaches, and to meet the safety requirements for the Department of Health just creates a big, big challenge. Town beaches.
So the recommendation would be to outreach to, waterfront hotel owners to have them look into the feasibility for their business model to do so in the name of public safety. So that could be an outreach letter simply, and to see if they would like to take that upon and contact and work with our town lifeguards for any information that might be needed to provide that type of service to their guests on the beach.
David, have we provided, flyers, and are there signs on like what to do in a RIP, the kind of information that Ocean Rescue typically puts out?
There is, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. We do actually have current signs at majority of our ocean beaches. One of the recommendations upcoming is going to be a reclustering of these informational signs in areas in which it doesn't become as much visual pollution, if you want to say. That would include that information and also QR code links to the town's website also. So I'll get that in just a little bit, Kathy.
Thanks.
No problem. The town police department and Marine Patrol recap. There was a great unified level of constant communications. Please don't forget, we actually had some major storms during the summer. We had a hurricane pass off just prior to Memorial Day, barely just to the east of us. And we also had a major storm that wiped away a lot of our beach just after Memorial Day, in which we were, the town board, I believe rightfully did so, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to replenish the beach to have our beaches ready for us in downtown Montauk. That took coordination between all our departments to be able to do so safely because the beaches were still open at the same exact time. We still want to have a greater presence of enforcement on the sand, especially from the dusk to midnight. We did that by scheduling, but we need to continue adding additional staffing, which we are currently doing and trying to do now because the county is offering our police schools. We need to look into the long-term changes to the right-of-way parking south of the highway in Montauk. I will mention that in my Liaison Report. I mentioned that last night. We had a very fruitful discussion at the Montauk CAC about that, looking for sight lines, potential safety and safety hazards that are there to make connectivity to our beaches easier for pedestrians. Again, I said we coordinated beach closures. And still the suggestion is for a summer beach manager position to coordinate all departments to be a liaison to the town board eventually. And again, that would have to take budgeting to be able to do so, but we would like the town board to continue to investigate that. Buildings and grounds recap. Buildings and grounds, I'll be honest, they took it on the chin a little bit in this summertime because of staffing, and I think they did as well as they potentially could. Right now, because of the lack of staffing, I applaud Tony Littman, Severo, Lon Mosley, and others for putting together trash runs, refuse runs, and also custodial staffing that kept our beaches as clean as they could be with having almost 50% less staffing for those department's needs. There was a large amount of effort displayed to get our facilities ready for the COVID-19 guidelines, which were still in place. Staffing levels were not adequate for the increased workload of refuse removal, even though, rightfully so, the town board increased the paid salary. I believe that the staffing, the migration of staffing that we were seeing, not just in our township, but in the state, the country, maybe even the world right now, affected our hiring for this past year, but I hope that changes for 2022. Our morning beach trash runs in Montauk were staffed and implemented, but at lower level. Our custodial staffing was adequate this year because of the higher pay scales. We did see a large amount of vandalism at our beach restrooms, particularly ditch planes. We also saw it at Maidstone. At ditch planes, there were not just vandalism to town property, but there was also theft to vendors in that area. Moving forward to Parks and Recreation recap. Staffing and job duties were reverted back to traditional duties pre-COVID. We did not use staff for our beach ambassadors. Our paid parking, which was the first year that we had Kirk Park and Atlantic Avenue working together, raised over $150,000 in non-tax revenue. Staffing levels were adequate through the season that we needed. We installed 2 ADA beach mats successfully. One was located at Atlantic Avenue, and it was used a lot. You can see it just in the picture there. Also, we installed one at Big Albert's, which is a bay bathing beach. Unfortunately, the slope at Big Albert's didn't allow for successful pilot, so we removed it. But we're looking to install or add more to other locations in the township that would be advised by this committee, and I'll bring it back to the town board. they were successfully used. Again, the junior lifeguarding program was successful with its adapted schedule, and even more so, the use of online registration and payments through the Parks and Recreation Department was very successful again. Trustee recap, because the clerk of the trustees, Clerk Francis Bach, is on this committee. They had a minimal amount of user interferences or abuses. Nighttime activities for beach fires were the greatest concerns. Again, they added more kayak racks. And again, the pump out that boat had an increased volume of use due to the greater efficiency for that, and they can explain more at their meetings also. Our recap for our recommendations for parking is the continuation of paid parking at Kirk Park and Atlantic Avenue for 2022. Again, the overall plan for parking south of the highway in Montauk needs to be addressed, and I will take that up in the coming weeks and mention it in my liaison report. The recommendation, again, is for a new ocean bathing beach and increased parking. We would like to renew the discussion of adding another guarded beach in the Nat Beag area. Also, the removal of parking in Montauk Highway as best as possible. A lot of people are parking on the highway there, but the one way to do that so is potentially adding more parking in the right of way, potentially at the terminus of Dolphin Drive. Also, parking lots due to wind and Aeolian process. Thank you, Brian Frank, for educating me when I was on the zoning board about what an Aeolian process is.
Wind is blowing.
And we also have Tim Treadwell with us now also. Thank you, Tim, for joining us. What happens with the process of sand movement is that it covers over asphalted areas. And a lot of those times we don't know what our boundaries of our town municipal properties are. So the recommendation would be to survey our beach parking lots and put posts in so we know where the corner of our properties are so that we can manage and maintain them for adequate parking and safety also.
David, I just want to say that's a great idea. I just know, like down in Indian Wells, what happens is the place where cars, go around and people are walking just gets narrower and narrower because the cars that are pulling head in are, further back now. So that would be great if we could do that.
That's one of the reasons we're looking at that. If you go to some of the other areas, let's say even not the Atlantic, the one at White Sands, you'll actually have a no parking sign about 10 feet into the dune. Mm. We know our staff is not going to put it in 10 feet into the dune, so probably over the years they moved. But before we really take a maintenance action, we want to know what our property is. So that's something that costs now we might reap the rewards of putting money in right now of the survey work to be able to get long-term maintenance in the end and know where our property boundaries are.
And increase public safety.
True, exactly. It goes into our last point is that we would like to always increase parking and safety at Indian Wells Beach. The recommendation is by removing the sidewalk on the west side of Indian Wells and add it, because we do now have a new sidewalk on the eastern side of Indian Wells, and add a crosswalk to the intersection of Bluff Road to allow people to cross over from the west side to the east side, take the new sidewalk down towards the parking lot. And eventually, we would like to add a connectivity public avenue for pedestrians to go from the comfort station up to the beach there. But that will allow us to do is we already have parking allotments on the western side of Indian Wells. But what happens is that people then are pushed from the sidewalks into the street, and it makes it just an unsafe practice right now. So that's the recommendation there. Peter, maybe.
Can I jump in on that?
Yes, go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I was involved with when we put that in, and the intent was to eliminate that sidewalk completely at some point in the future. It was, the signage was removed and it was made parking by permit. We had some discussions with the highway department, and at the time we just felt because it was right before the season, it was probably a little too expensive and messy to rip all that out and redo it and either create a shoulder or regrade it. So they left it. But it has caused a lot of confusion, as some people will try to park on that side of the road, but they don't want to block the whole sidewalk, and then they'll park partially into the lane of travel in the roadway, and that will create congestion. And additionally, the other side of the road where the new sidewalk is on the east side sometimes gets washed over with sand, and people are uncomfortable walking or using that area with strollers and this and that, and it just congested the whole area to where it makes that neck of the parking lot a little bit unsafe. And we have to do something with that west side to clean it up and make it more user friendly and much clearer as to which side the sidewalk that's supposed to be being used is on and how people are supposed to navigate the entrance in and out of the parking lot.
Thank you, Chief. That might be something, Peter, you might bring back to the CAC at some point for Amagansett, if we do move forward on that. Beach fires was a large discussion. I want to thank Severa Pistovich for doing a really deep dive into this. I do have to admit, I put his feet to the fire a little bit on this one because we were getting constant questions about this, particularly from individuals in the subcommittee, beach subcommittee of the Montauk CAC. Severa looked and contacted multiple municipalities, the U.S. Forestry Service, the USDA, the National Seashore and Parks, which allows for beach fires on Cape Cod and other locations. There were a large amount of beach fires at night in all the hamlets, but estimated less than 2021 based on Marine Patrol. Again, estimate less than 21. But in 2020, remember, a lot of the restaurants were closed and people were looking for evening things to do, so they went to the beaches. Many individuals are complying with the code, but others were not and littering or leaving their ash. We have came up with 7 suggestions for the town board to look at. These also are being reviewed and discussed with the Montauk CAC subcommittee and others. One would be maintain the current zoning code on beach fires. 2 would be design a permit application for beach fires, such as what they do in the National Seashore. 3rd would be develop a standard operating procedure for ash removal. They would be meeting of additional town staff, purchasing of equipment, ash bins, vehicles to do so and coordinate with sanitation. 4, to allow for a licensee to provide beach fire services, including removal. 5 would be to go out to an RFP for ash removal. 6 would be to limit areas and times for beach fires in specific area and designated hamlets. And 7 would be a ban on all beach fires. It's a lot to digest right now, and I'll talk with the town board as we move forward. Also, once I hear from the Montauk CAC, but these are about the 7 best suggestions that we have came up for the town board about beach fires, and see if the town board wants to move forward in any of those directions. Overall, our recommendations for 2022 would be to continue with a beach action plan that is designed with tested COVID safety policies in mind. Things might change. We might get different guidance from the state or the county health department, and our group will advise the town board to be prepared to change anything we might need to make sure that when we open in 2022, we are open safely and within those regulations. Recommendation again is to open all bathing beaches on the same schedule as in years past. Another recommendation that came from this group is to ban all forms of smoking and vaping 100 feet from the boundaries of protected bathing areas at guarded bathing beaches during the lifeguarded areas. Guarded bathing beaches are between the blue flags. It'd be 100 feet east or west of that, and to ban all forms of smoking and vaping. Next, we would look for additional locations to deploy ADA beach mats. Councilwoman Burke-Gonzalez, I look forward to working with your group for the disabilities group on that also. Next, to answer the question, was to develop a new, sorry, I heard an alarm. Next was to develop a new coordinated and attractive informational signage for our beach heads using QR codes that would take individuals, take them to direct them to the town's website. Let me be honest, there's a lot of fake signs out there, and we notice them. Also, we had to put up a lot of signs for COVID, and there's a lot of signs that, again, just obstruct you when you want to go up and have your bacon, egg, and cheese and look at the beach for that 5 minutes. So we're looking at coordinating those signs, working with Marine Patrol and the buildings and grounds to do so. Have the ocean beachhead parking areas surveyed and marked. Review the potential for adding Wi-Fi connectivity to our public bathing beaches. This was discussed in Chief John Ryan likes this option because it will allow for better connectivity between his lifeguards in need of emergency services in areas where systems are overloaded or they don't have the communications. We would like to see if the town board would like to test a pack-in or pack-out approach at determine beach locations. Multifaceted on here is that it would tell people that they have to take their trash first with them. It would lighten the load on our refuse removal. And some of our beaches, such as Sammy's Beach, is 20 minutes outside. It's a 40-minute run to get there for 1 or 2 trash cans. We can come up with a couple of those locations. Maybe Sylvia and I, we can discuss it within some of our committees, or Councilwoman Rogers also.
Yeah.
We also like to continue to keep the beach advisory group ad hoc and together, and specifically look for a dedicated beach manager position as a liaison to the town board in the budget for 2023. Again, practice social distancing. Let's keep 6 feet apart, and let's have a nice summer for 2022. With that is our recommendations. I have committee members here open for any type of questions or comments. Thank you again.
Any questions or comments from board members?
Well, I just wanted to say that this was really thorough, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. And I have to say, David, I agree with probably all of your recommendations for 2022. And I appreciate the work that's been done. I think adding Wi-Fi down at our beaches, the first thing that came to mind when you said it was, again, public safety. Folks can communicate with each other. I know we've talked at the Disability Advisory Committee about adding additional ADA beach mats. So I'd love to get that going. And I think the banning of smoking and vaping, 100 feet from lifeguarded areas is spot on.
So David, I just want to thank you as well. Very thorough. I might even consider further away than 100 feet for smoking and vaping, actually. I know we did 1,000 feet in each direction for alcohol at Indian Wells, so we might want to consider, again, it's about children and safety, health issues. And just a very, very picky nuance. We've been using carry in, carry out instead of pack in, pack out. So I would just make everything consistent if we can, carry in, carry out. And back to Indian Wells with that western sidewalk. Yeah, I'd love to work on that and coordinate it with you because Chief Sarlo, you're correct. We worked on that. I think it was 2014 that we started, and did some changes at that beach, which has been very positive. So I'd like to just continue to take a look at it as we move forward. And again, thanks, very thorough. And we also should consider, David, the beach that's down on Peak, the parking lot that's down there. Is it Atlantic Avenue? Is it Atlantic Road?
Yeah.
It's not Atlantic Avenue Beach. It's further.
Atlantic Road.
Atlantic Road, thank you. And I know that I've looked at that before. And their sand has encroached on that quite a bit. So that needs to be considered as well. I'm not sure we can make more parking spaces there, but we certainly can consider making it flow a little bit better.
Thank you.
I would just like to add some comments. I would also like to thank David for his thorough presentation. Everything that you're speaking of is really for the best practices for public safety on our beaches. And I think they're very good recommendations. I know that the sand has been accruing on beachheads for a while, and it's been an issue that's been brought up. And that I noticed personally. So I think that'll do a lot as well, so that we know how much parking we have and where those spots are. Everything else I think is wonderful, and I agree with the additional making the ban broader along the beach, as Sylvia suggested.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a couple of comments. I think the board members pretty much covered most of what I would want to say, but it's Atlantic Drive in Napeague, and that road end has about 30 feet or 35 feet worth of asphalt that's showing. However, I believe the town's property is 100 feet wide there.
Yeah.
So there's certainly, to David's point about having our road ends, staked so that we know what the boundaries of them are and maintaining them to the full width, full extent possible both improves the safety and circulation at the road ends. And so I think that's certainly something we should be looking at, not just with that particular road end, but there are a number of beach road ends throughout the town that we really should take a closer look at, along with improvements on the shoulders, so that I know at Beach Lane there's continual problems with puddling, ponding along that shoulder. So there are a number of locations that be helpful, I think, to look at.
I thank you very much for those comments. I'll take them back, and we'll continue moving this forward. I think, as everyone knows, right now we're almost too late on this presentation in a way, because summer will creep up on us very fast, and I look forward to taking these recommendations, moving them forward, and continue the discussion with the board. I thank Chief Sarlo, Chief Treadwell, Severo, and John Rooney. Thank you very much for your being present here today also for us.
Well, thank you, David. At this point, let's move on to our second topic of discussion. Thank you, Chief, and John, Tim.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
We'd like to discuss the 17 Hawthorne UR map modification. Some of the callers today had commented about that particular request. Again, this is a request to modify the existing urban renewal map to allow for the property to be separated. As was mentioned, John, I think you probably want to give us an update on introduction to this as well. But essentially, as one of the callers mentioned, the effort of the UR maps was to consolidate what were a multitude of very, very small lots back at the end of the 19th century, early 20th century. Developers came in and subdivided large swaths of land in East Hampton into lots that are probably more similar to what you might find in Brooklyn and in other cityscapes, where they were in some cases as narrow as 20 feet wide, but a lot of them were 50 by 100 foot lots, and with the idea that this somehow would be developed into row houses, that sort of type of development. Those maps were consolidated beginning in 1976, I believe, through this urban renewal map effort, and requiring within the maps that certain parcels be combined to make one larger lot. So in this case, the town has purchased back in 2005, I think, a narrow sliver of one of the lots that was supposed to be joined with another. I think that was 4,000 square foot parcel. The adjoining lot's 10,000 square foot. But John, if you want to just take it from there and kind of talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's been summed up pretty well by the callers and by I think by the planning board memo. Basically, we have a situation here where the urban renewal map created a lot that ran from these old file map lots 36 through 42, and they're approximately 20 by 100 apiece. And we acquired from the I don't know if we bought it from the county. I can't remember. I think it was maybe acquisition from the county or from somebody else. We bought 41 and 42 with funds that basically are the equivalent of an open space acquisition. So we can't reconvey that property to the owner of the rest of this urban renewal parcel, which is the requirement under the urban renewal statute that one owner or the other picks up the rest of it in order to create a full lot. So we basically rendered the rest of this parcel unusable unless we amend the map. Something I probably wouldn't discuss in a public session, but it's out there that basically we've taken the rest of the parcel if we don't do an amendment to the map, because you're rendering it unusable. So it's akin to a de facto condemnation at that point. So the decision that the town board has to make is fairly simple. Do you want to allow the lot to be utilized in its configuration of lots 36 through 40, or or not allow the modification, in which case, the owner will be looking for the town to acquire the balance of the parcel. We did talk about this. I can't remember how long, sometime I'm going to say 2020, but it could have even been 2019 when we started this. And because I know Joanne Powell was here at the time, and it was brought to the planning board. That process was started to modify the map. I believe there wasn't a strong desire to acquire the balance of this parcel. So the process of amending the map was started, and the planning board in relatively recent time finally looked at this, made a recommendation to the town board to amend the UR map. I believe it was pointed out that they kind of misstated the background, or they said something to the effect of the property owner reacquiring that property. This property owner of 36 through 40 didn't acquire it, didn't own it previously. It was a separate owner. And but the end result is the same. They can't acquire that property from the town because we can't sell it to them. I believe there are a couple of other instances like this around town where we bought little pieces of urban renewal parcels as they came available. But if we used funds of this type for that acquisition, we're going to have the same problem reoccur elsewhere. What you might decide in this might apply to other parcels as well. It's kind of maybe a bigger decision than just for this parcel. As Rick Whalen mentioned, there are some clients of his that have similar issues. So, it's a topic that I think you have to think about and decide what you want to do. Some of the comments we had today were good. I wish they were in the record at the hearing, but I'm sure they'll resubmit them at the time of the hearing, so we have it in the actual formal record of the process.
So John, the first question I have is when this is noticed for hearing, are the immediately adjoining abutting property owners notified under this process?
I don't believe so. No, I don't think so.
So there's no notice requirement to the adjoining property owners?
No, and that is something that on occasion when we've had situations, and the reason I say no is because I can remember prior instances where the town board thought that there might be some concerns of neighbors. They've directed the applicants to provide a notice to the neighbors, but it's not required in the statute. So.
Yeah, I was curious because while we may have heard from a couple of residents within the town, I think we've heard from one person who is somewhat immediate to this parcel, but none of the adjoining property owners. I haven't received any correspondence from.
Right. The only notice that I'm aware of is just the publication. The statute doesn't require it. It might be something that you want to consider adding to the urban renewal code, or not. I mean, it's up. There's also the process that's used at the planning board level. This is really a review by the planning board members and a recommendation back to the town board. There's not a lot of involvement of the public at that stage either. I mean, the public involvement's really at the town board level when we hold the public hearing.
Right.
And I know there are people who have requested to comment to the planning board. They do it usually typically by submission of a letter, which is reviewed by the board. But there's no hearing at that level either. So maybe some things to consider and look at the urban renewal law if you're not comfortable with the way the process goes.
So, under that process, you have a very small lots that are cited in the map to be combined. So in other words, they're not supposed to be developed on their own. The owners of those individual substandard lots are supposed to work it out amongst themselves, if you will. And I know that over time, I've seen a couple of these parcels where those owners just could never reach any kind of agreement on price and whatnot. And in this particular case, the town has knowingly purchased part of the property that would be necessary to complete a buildable lot under the urban renewal map plan. So I'm kind of curious and somewhat surprised knowing that the previous town board at the time didn't just go ahead and purchase the other parcel. Seems problematic. So, I mean, at this point, we really do have two choices. We either amend this map to allow this lot to exist on its own, or we seek to purchase that property. I think that's pretty clear, isn't it?
Can I just say, I just want to disclose that I live in that neighborhood. And John, we discussed this. I went back in my notes. We discussed this in executive session on April 21st, 2020 and October 6th, 2020. Can we acquire the lot with CPF funds?
Yes, I believe you can. I think it fits the criteria now.
Okay.
If it's a willing seller and it appraises.
Okay. So I'm just, my thoughts here is that I believe that we should we should acquire the property and not amend the UR map. And I believe that's consistent with what I had stated in the past, but that's where, I don't think we should be. It is, it's a densely populated neighborhood. It's interesting how all of a sudden now there is a lot more building activity going on, and folks are entitled, obviously, to build there. And it's nice to see some working families moving into our community. But I would support acquisition.
So I have an issue in the way that the small lots was formulated. I think it was a little bit deceitful back in 2001, in which the board at that time would buy a piece of property to denude the potential building capacity of other properties. I think that the board at that time should have gone through Chapter 232, done the dispute resolution and 232-190 on there, and gone to review it by the administrator within the town code, and they did not. They left this property and many other properties out there that are now substandard to lot size. In the area of the B zoning right now, up until 1984, it was called a multiple residence zoning district, in which it had to have a minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet. But in 1984, the B residence was now upzoned to 20,000 square feet, which is our smallest residential area by district and the minimum lot area. Now, many of the properties, if not the majority of the properties in this area, are under 20,000 square feet, including callers that called in today. What happens now is if you look at the way other properties were purchased on there, one of them was purchased, many of these properties, 20 by 10 foot strips were purchased from Structural Technology in 2005. These properties were then bought in a way that it didn't denude someone else's private property rights. That's why I find it deceitful. The town board at that time in 2005 then used the funding source to purchase an aggregate of properties so that it didn't just buy one strip to not allow one person to use their potential rights. If you look into the area of not just this area but other locations where there are URLs, there's a lot of these that are out there right now. I have a little bit of issue right now going back in, and one of the parts of resolution here is that you could do a purchase and then a reconvenience of the property through eminent domain. I do not like using eminent domain in this situation. I also, in 2021, I remember my father sold small urban renewal lot to Lynn Rudolph, a teacher at the high school, at the middle school at that time. God, I wish he saved it. I think he sold it for $30,000 or $40,000. I was living in his basement at the time, right now, coming back from college, just getting done with cancer at that time. Right now, what's just poignant is that these are small lots. They're not affordably housing lots because based on town code, but they're now going to become the affordable housing for any new home buyer or person that wants to try to live out here. So I think there's an issue, a greater issue than just one lot we have to look at here, is how do we look at a lot of them right now. But I look forward to moving this to public hearing and hearing what the rest of the public might have to say on it. Again, I do believe that the way that this one was purchased and some others that are out there based on the use of that $5 million bond was deceitful at the time. And unfortunately, 20 years later right now, the vision wasn't there when we're at an affordable housing precipice that we're now getting caught with it, and we have to make tough decisions.
David, just to add to that, the property, this actually, I wasn't able to open the deed before, but I got it to open. We acquired this property from Wesley Miller, who was a local builder. And I know there were multiple lots that he offered the town at the time. So I'm not quite sure how many there are, but I know there's more than one. I could certainly go back and find out. So just something to be aware of.
Don, who was the town attorney in 2004? Because David Buda had sent us, an email yesterday where he sent us the letter that he had sent to the planning board, and he included the resolution for the acquisition. Then it was called 17 Broadway, not 17 Hawthorne. And the resolution has the assistant town attorney being Tiffany Scarlato.
I don't know. The deed came back to Beth Baldwin when the deed came back. I don't know when it was recorded. But it could have, Tiffany could have.
The resolution was offered by Councilman Potter at the time and second by Councilwoman Manser.
And when I say deceitful, the overall intent of the bond, I think was valid. Okay? But the way that this one purchase and the others in which they specifically purchase one sliver, but not all of them, that's a deceitful way to denude someone's private property rights for potentially building a property, or to go through the dispute resolution, which is in the town code already. I think the town board at that time should have bought all of them at that time.
Yeah, I don't think it was just the purchase alone. It was the fact that the source of the funds wouldn't allow for the property to be sold in the future to make that a full lot. I think, there are a number of properties out there. I think we should look at each one individually because on a case-by-case basis. And, I think the board members have expressed very valid points on both sides. And frankly, I'm somewhat conflicted. Because on the one hand, we've long tried to reduce density, and at the same time, right now we are facing unprecedented crisis in housing, and it is in fact the small lots within the town which will allow small houses to be built and have a smaller price tag associated with them, and so It really is a double-edged sword, if you will. I would reserve my decision until after a hearing. I want to hear what the public has to say about it. But, I think when I look at the overall map in the area, there are a number of properties that range in the 10,000 square foot range. Or even smaller. I found parcels with houses that were as small as 4,800 square feet. These are very modest little homes on modest little properties. And, these are the types of, opportunities that we need for people to stay in our community who live and work here now. There's just a real dearth of rental housing. Larger properties are being bought up, and the values are gone up exponentially. So, I'm going to reserve my judgment on this till after the hearing, but I am somewhat conflicted by the different issues.
Yeah, I agree with Peter in that I'm going to reserve, but I think it's very dangerous for us to say and conflate affordable housing with small lots. We've seen what's happened on the lanes in Amagansett. Those are small lots, and those are enormous houses selling for millions and millions of dollars. And, there's no guarantee here that this will be a house that would be affordable in any way, shape, or form. So unless, there's some mechanism that folks want to become part of the affordable housing program, I just think it's very dangerous for us to say that this small lot is going to be affordable once the house is built. So it could, support a swimming pool and decking and all the amenities that people want, and that's not the affordable housing that we're looking for.
And to Sylvia's point, in that neighborhood, there's a lot of hardworking families that live here, but there's also quite a few second homeowners. So it's not a guarantee that it's going to go to someone that's going to be
based on a letter that
year-round resident.
Based on a letter that the contract vendee did submit, that it's going to be used for his family for that so his children can stay here. So, I understand this. There's a lot of the cynicism that builds up in us as we hear a lot of this, but I look forward to moving forward. So moving forward, I wasn't conflating affordable housing in our stockpiles with a small lot. I'm just trying to say in an affordably priced lot. We've had callers call in about CPF properties and try to look at small lots and then try to go per acre. If we look at apples and oranges to which at that time I said it is incorrect, and I still say it is here, per acre, the cheapest lot are the smaller lots.
I mean, I agree. It's just, they're very small lots on the lanes in Amagansett, and that's what's happened there is really, lost some of the community character that I wish we had years ago. But anyway, again, I'm going to listen to, this is a conversation we can have over and over again. I'm going to listen to the public, and I look forward to that conversation.
Your point's well taken, Sylvia.
I'll just give you just a little bit more information too. The parcel that we're talking about modifying the map to, the purchasers, as Mr. Buddha said, they acquired it from the county. They acquired it in 2000. We bought 41 and 42 in 2004. So they didn't buy it after the town had acquired this parcel. They bought it before, so you're aware. So we had a small window to try to make, an effort to acquire the rest of it, but at the same time, they didn't buy it knowing that the rest of it wasn't available, because at the time it would have been available until we bought it. So I don't know if they, attempted to acquire it from Mr. Miller at the time or not before he sold it to us, but I just want to let you know they didn't buy it from the county after the town acquired that sliver, but before.
Any
Thank
other?
you, John. I just would like to just add a few questions probably to consider, and I'm happy that this will be scheduled for public hearing. I think it is the type of issue that we need to hear from the public on and more in depth than what we've heard. I just want to consider that the efficacy of buying this small lot for open space and what that will achieve by keeping it open space versus the intent on the purchase of the property, the impacts of development of this particular property. Those are part of the things that I reserve my judgment as well, but that's something in an overall picture. If we're going to look at properties specifically rather than an overall amendment to the process, then that's where we're at. For me, that's what I want to weigh out.
Thank you, Kate.
John, can I ask a question? Could a neighbor purchase this property and join it to their current property to build a larger house?
Oh, certainly. Sure. Definitely.
And I noticed on the map that there's a portion of Broadway that is cross-hatched, which is right of way that is to be abandoned.
Or has been abandoned. I don't know which.
It says to be abandoned. So I don't know if it has been or not, but the adjoining property owners, including the town, has the opportunity to abandon that section north, I guess, of those parcels.
It doesn't look like it had, at least according to the last tax map, it's not shown as being absorbed into those parcels, so it probably hasn't been done.
So that increases potentially the square footage of the parcels as well. And I don't know what, I don't have the dimensions, so I don't know how many square feet that would add to either of the parcels, but something I just wanted to point out.
Let's see. The roads are 50-foot roads.
So it'd be 25 feet by whatever the frontage is.
Right.
Because it's interesting because originally when we acquired it, it was 17 Broadway, and now it's being referred to as 17 Hawthorne Street. So is that?
No, if you look at the aerials, what's happened is that Broadway on two of the properties that are neighboring properties that probably take a terminus off of either Hawthorne or the property just the street Eau Claire. Mm-hmm. They're ending up being de facto cul-de-sacs now. So I don't know if they're going to be, I don't know where the change is, but what happens is two of those properties have claimed the road and matched, so you can't go through. So I don't know, I don't know if Broadway was taken out of the name and gone to Hawthorne because of that or not. But if you look at the map right now, there's been other adjoining property owners in which there's no way to make Broadway work as a street anymore, or as a thoroughfare between Eau Claire and Hawthorne.
Right. The adjoining parcel to the east has abandoned the, and likewise the property opposite it did the same thing. So it's totally blocked as a through street. You can't get through.
And the property opposite of it is, if you took out the square footage of the abandonment, is close to only 14, if not less, 1,000 square feet also. Anyway, on to another discussion. Excuse me, sorry for saying that. But it's not for me.
No, that's fine.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this topic? We will wait to hear from the public in a public hearing. And next up, we have emergency communications update. And we have with us Eric Shantz, our assistant planning director, and Eddie Schnell, our communications expert. And we're going to discuss the update and phase 2 SECRA. Welcome, Eric and Eddie.
How are you?
Very well. Eddie, just before we get started, we had a caller on the line. Bonnie Brady was wondering about the Gator site, East Lake Drive. Can you describe for us what is intended to take place there with regard to the emergency communications?
So 2 of the existing wooden poles that are not the wooden poles that the ospreys and now the bald eagles nest on are going to be removed and replaced with identically colored steel poles that are 3 feet shorter to house public safety communications equipment. At this point, there's no plans for cellular, and because of the short height of the towers, it would be hard to accommodate them. But it is county property and it's a county project. The plan was to start this week, but with the crazy cold weather, it's been getting delayed a little bit.
So this is basically drop and swap on those poles, substitute steel for wood.
Yeah, the existing ones are wood left over from the Cold War, so it's putting a steel pole in its place.
Great, thank you, Eddie. So Eric, you want to give us an update here and go over the...
Yeah, sure. Actually, just to backtrack quickly, another comment from the public that was made was about the height of the new tower in Montauk. Eddie, is it correct that it's 300? So it's the original application is the wrong word, but the original plan was to have a 300-foot tower there, and the FAA had other plans. So it is currently built to a maximum height of 194 feet. But the design of the tower as it sits now is designed to be extendable. So we left it as 300 feet in the various secret documents and approvals, so that we live to fight the FAA another day.
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess just a timeline history here. Well, actually, another thing that a member of the public said was they were talking about a presentation. I know, Eddie, that you presented it at least once. I think you actually presented it twice, a PowerPoint presentation on the communications upgrades. But that can be found right on the homepage of the town's website. If you scroll down to near the bottom, it says current projects. The second one is a link that has various information, including that PowerPoint presentation. So I just wanted to let the public know that. So basically, the communication upgrade, the original, this conversation is really about the secret documents, State Environmental Quality Review Act, the environmental assessment forms that need to be completed for review of the project. The town board did make a negative declaration saying that they find no potential for significant adverse impacts in October of 2018. Just giving you a back history here. Some aspects of the project have changed, not that many of them. In fact, so, and a lot of people know that there was discussion of the node, if you will, of the network for Springs to be that site on Crandall and Lincoln. The town board, after many discussions about that issue, has since decided to pursue, and I believe it's going to become a reality, locating that node at 103 Flaggy Hole Road, which is the Girl Scouts Camp Blue Bay. That was the original plan that was in the secret that was adopted, again, by the board in October of 2018. So right now, the only changes, there's 10 different project aspects. The only things that changed are that now the only things that have changed, if you don't count the change of considering Crandall and then going back to 103 Flaggy Hill Road, are that a new tower was built by Verizon, AT&T at the brush dump property on Old Northwest Road. The town is going to locate equipment on that, and then also install equipment on the long existing water tower that's located at 56 Flamingo Avenue in Montauk. So the changes, though, did warrant reconsidering SECRA and readopting an amended EAF. That is what we have prepared for you. That is posted on the town website with the material for this meeting. I have since, after talking with council, amended that document, not significantly, really just slight changes and just adding clarification. I did email that to all the board members, along with a document that highlighted the changes that were made. So really the main changes there were, I had originally used what they call the short EAF Part 1 form. The EAF Part 1 is really just a project description. It's not the evaluation of the potential impacts. It's sort of the lesser end of things. It's not the analysis of the impacts. I used prepared the full EAF Part 1, excuse me. But basically the project has not changed, so the information therein is just a little bit more specific. Although, unfortunately, that form is really intended to, it's formatted for a project that's going to be located on one property, let's say building a retail building or something like that. And this is a project that involves 10 different aspects of on 10 different properties throughout town. The only other change really was just that in the EAF Part 3, which is the kind of the meat of the document that does the analysis of the potential impacts, we just clarified that the Girl Scout camp property, the project aspects that are to occur there will not only be reviewed by the planning board through site plan review, but that also that will receive its own SECRA review its own environmental assessment form. It'll be treated as, and it is, we recognize that it's part of the larger project here to upgrade communications. But as far as the review goes, the other aspects of the project have already been approved. Some of them are half built. But those will be done essentially immediately upon completion of the adoption of the amended EAF. But the Girl Scout camp is pending a further, more intensive review and its own environmental assessment form and environmental review. So that's really the only change to the document that is currently posted on the website. Really, it's only a couple of sentences, just clarifying that. Basically, as we had done previously in July of last year, we recommend that you re-adopt the negative declaration and adopt the amended document to reflect the changes that have occurred since the 2018 negative declaration.
Eric, just so you know, as of 10:30 this morning, your revised EAF was posted on the website. So what goes on there, the one that you revised per your discussions with council is posted.
Okay, great. Yeah, I didn't think the response would be that quick. So
we try.
Succeed, apparently.
Any questions for Eric or Eddie from board members?
Eddie, can you just go back to the Gator site on there right now? So the poles that are there right now, there's no additional, there's no more cell communications that are going to go on those poles. What we're looking at solely right now is for our emergency communication needs, not for cell communications, which would be potentially just, if they even did that, that would be a county action. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so the property is owned by the county. So anything that goes on up there requires the county to review it. That's why these poles, they didn't go through any town zoning or planning. It's fully exempt. So anything that went on up there for cellular would be a fully county project.
And again, just so the public's aware, this will complete emergency communications in what has been historically a dead zone, I believe around the harbor and on the other side towards the lighthouse. Is that correct, Eddie?
Yeah, this has been a 20+ year project in the making.
And we got it done.
Yep.
Good job, team. All right, any other questions or comments?
I mean, we've seen this document in different reincarnations a number of times over the years. I appreciate all the work Eric and Eddie has done on this. And I know this is the last piece, Eddie, so that you can start moving on some of these changes and that need to get done so we can complete this project that we started in 2017. And I would hope we could put the resolution on, I guess, for the 20th, Thursday the 20th, so that you can move forward and get the rest of the project.
So,
with the exception of obviously the Girl Scout camp, because that's going to need further review once we get through engineering and it goes to the planning board.
That will require planning board review and approval. Eddie, with regard to timelines, do we have an idea about, for instance, the tower by the Northwest Fire Substation, the brush dump?
So we've got to go back to Motorola and get all the additional sites priced out and nickel and dime them on the price that they give back because it'll be way high. And once we have that ironed out, we'll be able to place the order with Motorola, which really starts the wheels turning on construction. I've heard some very crazy timelines on building deliveries lately. And
well, that's part of the reason I asked. I know that I just think the public needs to be aware that with COVID, the supply chain issues that, ripple through the construction industry and every other industry that there may be some delays, but I just wanted to prepare everybody's expectations for that.
Yeah, it's probably going to be over a year after we cut the purchase order for the brush dump and for Blue Bay. The idea would be to buy, we've got 2 sites in Northwest and Blue Bay that are functionally identical in terms of build out. So we would want to leverage that we're going to buy 2 buildings in one shot and hopefully get moved up the pecking order a little bit and expedite some of the design decisions because we only have to do it once. So it's, we're also looking at the possibility of buying used shelters that are fully refurbished because there's nothing wrong with the concrete shell. The problem is always just with the lighting and the electrical, which they can gut all that and make it a new building. But we got to review that with purchasing.
Great. Thank you, Eddie. Any other questions or comments for Eddie?
Well, Eddie's still here. It's part of my liaison report. I wanted to talk about the emergency communications cow in Springs, that we need a decision in order to move forward on that. Could we move that up to right now or ask Eddie to wait and stay for my liaison report?
Oh, we could talk about that now if you like.
So, everybody, Eddie made a presentation at the December 7th town board work session. We're looking at an 88-foot lattice tower on a trailer. And originally there were 3 sites proposed: Maidstone Park, Springs Library, and Gann Road. But then towards the end of December, Eddie notified us, and I think we discussed it. It came up during public comment last week, that Maidstone Park looks like it's off the table due to deed restrictions. So then we're looking at Springs Library and Gann Road. Only a few folks from my Springs CAC weighed in, but the support was for Gann Road. And for me, that's where what I would recommend is Gann Road, and I was wondering if the other board members had given it thought and we could come to a decision so that we can move forward.
Board members?
I would agree with you, Kathy, based on the temporary nature of the need, that the infrastructure is in place in the location that would be best suited would be the Gann Road location.
I agree with that decision. I think Gann Road has many pluses to put the cow there, including just the ability to access in and out on roadways, etc.
I'm comfortable with Gann Road. I don't think it was my first choice, but I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, I agree with Sylvia and the rest of the board. Gann Road, given our list of available sites, town-owned sites, seems to be the best at this point. Having eliminated Maidstone Park, initially we thought that the road right-of-way would extend through that portion of the park, and after review, it turns out that it's not a town road right-of-way per se. It's within the confines of the park itself. So rather avoid the question about whether or not this is an unallowed use in the park and causes reversion, we're going to avoid that altogether and go to Gann Road, I guess. Sounds like we have consensus on that.
So I would imagine we would need a board resolution. So is that something, John, that could be ready for the 20th?
Sure. Okay.
And Eddie, with that notion, with that discussion there, Ed, can you just make sure you coordinate with Senior Harbor Master Tim Treadwell also?
Yeah,
and the marine maintenance down there to make sure that that location, as they set up and they get ready for the season in their boats and the way that they maneuver in and out of there, that would be okay with them, and then also with aquaculture too, please.
Yeah, discussed it with Ed Michaels prior, but we'll refresh the idea.
Thank you, Eddie.
No problem.
Thanks, Eddie and Eric. Appreciate it. We'll move on now to liaison reports. Kathy, you have a report for us?
I do, and I welcome part 2, and I welcome giving my first liaison report of the new year. Yesterday, some town staff and myself met with R2 Architecture and we wanted to do a meet and greet with the new team, discuss the contract, which Sean had started drafting, as well as to start the discussion on what the community engagement program would look like. I'm hoping that the contract can be nailed down and executed in the next week or two. And in the meantime, R2 is starting to sketch out the community engagement plan, which will potentially involve, at this point, with the COVID surge happening, will probably involve virtual meetings. We talked about the ability maybe to do one-on-one interviews with seniors and a town-wide questionnaire. And this way we can identify the community's vision and goals, as well as program elements we want to include at the new senior center. Last night, I met with the East Hampton Sag Harbor CAC, as I'm their new liaison, and we treated the meeting as an organizational meeting. They elected officers. The chair is going to continue to be Katie Casey, vice chair Jerry Butler, and the minute taker is Bob Brody, with assistance when needed from Brian Carabine and Jola Macario. And then we also set the meeting dates. The East Hampton Sag Harbor CAC meets typically the first Monday of the month at 6 p.m. But when there's major holidays, it gets bumped to the second Monday of the month. And we discussed fog lines, and I'll be reaching out to Steve Lynch to follow up, because there's some concerns along the intersection of Stevenhans Path and Cedar Street. And I brought up that there are 2 public hearings coming up on January 20th. And the CAC, after discussion, decided that they all agreed that they wanted to send 2 letters to the town board. One that supports the rezoning of the 2 properties on Route 114, which totals about 6.5 acres, to designate that with an affordable housing overlay to increase density. And the second letter they're going to send is in support of the CPF acquisition on Cedar Street for agricultural use, with the existing structure to be preserved for agricultural use, including farmer housing. And that Councilman Lease had just noticed last Thursday is a 12.37 acre parcel with a purchase price of $10 million. So it was a great meeting. Everyone went around and everybody got to introduce themselves, because we have some new members. And, I look forward to having a productive 2022 with the East Hampton Sag Harbor CAC. And that's what I have for today.
Thank you, Kathy. David?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me just get to my, great, okay. So I also had my first meeting of the year with the Montauk CAC last night. There was a record 30 plus members that tuned on at the beginning. Some of them tuned out by the end, but it was great conversation.
There was a football game, I think, that was going on, right?
I'm a Penn Stater, so yeah.
I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry. Football.
Good luck next year, right?
Not a bulldog, huh?
No, but I am glad they won. I'll be honest there. So anyway, we digress. It was great to see the members and the new members of the committee there then too. It was a very lively conversation. We started the conversation discussing airport subcommittee discussions, any updates with the Montauk, about the diversion to the Montauk Airport, where the town board is moving forward on there. They have some questions about the Montauk Airport that they would like the supervisor and I to report back on. We also went into a lively discussion at the time about the beach subcommittee that they have, the recommendations that I forward to that subcommittee, the town board presentation. They're going to be coming back to us with some comments, but a lot of what we presented today is in line with some of their beliefs then also. Again, the subcommittee of the airport subcommittee, I wanted just to mention, wants to make sure that the town board continues to consider not making any advancements forward about any potential closure to the airport or East Hampton Airport without having a firm plan in place, as we're aware of also. What I then went into is a discussion with long-term downtown Montauk parking. I know I discussed this in my presentation. This culminated in about 3 years of work. Again, I say 3 years because started in early 2020 with then town attorney Jameson McWilliams, Chief Sarlo, but the COVID hit, and then you take priorities. And at that time, this wasn't the highest priority. Public safety was for me. We started looking at a deep dive in charting all the parking restrictions in the downtown Montauk Hamlet area. There are some places in the code in which the code actually has the same section of road, but three different regulations or restrictions. Some places roads are just spelled incorrectly, but what we were more looking at was places in which we found out recently where we stopped parking for connectivity of people walking from the main street, meaning 27 to the beach, using infrastructure of sidewalks. There is no infrastructure of sidewalks along South Emerson. So looking at that and doing some of the pilot testing that we did in the last 2 years because of COVID reductions on there, we brought in areas that we might want to add in parking restrictions for 2 hours to make sure that there's greater turnover for business-related ventures. We also looked in places for no parking for safety, public safety, pedestrian safety. And then we also looked into areas in which we could potentially add in paid parking in the downtown Montauk area where there's already right-of-way parking, or adding right-of-way parking that we might be able to develop non-tax revenue. Hopefully, I would advocate for the non-tax revenue for a pilot like this, would be able to put it into the type of reserve fund that might be able to use for infrastructure in the Montauk area. So the discussion kept moving forward. We showed charts, and then there was a former Montauk CAC about parking that had been formed years in the past, parking and traffic. We're gonna work on this a little bit more, hash it through, potentially bring it back to the town board in February for some potential recommendations, either for adding paid parking or for adding restricted parking. But there was great support. I'm still getting emails from the Chamber of Commerce. Steve Kalimios was a supporter of this. We had support from Paul Monte, property owners, stakeholders, just pedestrians on there that voice support. Some skepticism, of course, because of the need for enforcement, to regulate any to enforce any regulations he might put in. But it met with very good support, and I look forward to continue this discussion because this would be the time frame that we would need to do any changes now to be prepared for the summer season, of course, then too. So that was a great discussion. Moving on, we had a couple of individuals were interested in us moving forward the marijuana law discussion. We're going to bring that back to the Montauk CAC in February. And then also individuals that are interested about the Montauk Hopper. They want to make sure the Montauk Hopper runs again in 2022, and potentially adding a spur of it that would go down Second House Road to encapsulate some of not just the commercial hotels there, but also there's a lot of employee housing in that area that might help out then too by using the Hopper. So long-term discussions there. So anyway, it was a very nice discussion. And I did get home for a stunning fourth quarter of Georgia football. Congratulations, Sylvia. There you go. Your Bulldogs won it. I do have to say.
Thank you, David.
We met with the CPF Advisory Committee met yesterday. We did have some guests. The guests included Sarah Davison and Caroline Logan Gluck, talking about the importance of preservation and specifically actions in areas of Wayne-Scott, knowing that there's a lot of commercial development in Wayne-Scott also. At that discussion was also David Buddha, and he was also discussing, agenda topic items and privileges of exec sessions on there too. The Property Management Committee did meet. I know Peter will probably bring it up. The one part about it with the Property Management Committee was the Carl Fisher House. Peter, I'll let you bring that up. I'm so sorry, it was just on my thing here. I have a couple things from the Fisheries Advisory Committees. again, we have the deadline, again, I mentioned this in the past, for fishermen that want to apply for the Consolidated Appropriations Act Marine Fisheries Relief Program. The deadline is on the 14th, which is the end of the week. This is the second round of funding, part of the CARES Act for the fishing industry. If you did not apply for the first round or were rejected, you are still eligible for the second round of funding. If you did not apply for the first round, you must submit a new application to be eligible. There's a link at the dec.ny.gov. This was sent around by Dan Farnham Jr. So if anyone's listening, again, I mentioned it last night, if they've lost funds based on COVID and you're in the fisheries, please contact myself. I can get you more information. I want to thank Laura Tuman for the Montauk's for the CCOM. Laura Tuman helped coordinate efforts with the supervisor's office, with Assemblyman Fred Thiel's office, the DEC, and also with New York State Parks about having meetings for trying to remediate or stop the spread of southern pine beetles in the Napeague area. There was a meeting of New York State Parks last week. And again, we're having an on-site meeting. They're doing surveys. We're doing an on-site meeting with land management and state parks, I believe on Thursday, to look over options and areas where they might fell trees and chip trees to try to stop the spread of southern pine beetles right now. I think one of the best things that we have right now is finally a cold burst out there that hopefully will slow the spread a little bit longer. I want to let everyone know that the trustees are planning to open not open Georgia Pond, but they're preparing for the annual sand dredging at the mouth of Georgia Pond. Shortly after this, heavy equipment will be staged at the beach parking lot. This will be down at Beach Lane in Waynescott. The work is done under a 5-year DEC Army Corps of Engineers permit. So I want to alert everyone to so that there will be heavy machinery on the beach there. It's not to do with anything connected with the South Fork Wind Farm. And that if you have any questions, please contact the trustee's office. Councilwoman Rogers and myself sat in on the construction operating procedures for the South Fork Wind Farm. I'll let her discuss that, but it was a nice discussion to see our town agencies on that call. And it was nice to have work with Councilwoman Rogers on that call and let them know that we are overseeing it. And lastly, part of our housing initiative, which I know the supervisor will talk about, All Hands on Housing. I met with a working group for the 395 Panago working project, and the working group was laying out goals and milestones and needs that we need to do to move affordable housing project forward there. One of the first things we would like to do, and I have to ask the board this, is to potentially look at the town code and the options that we have in the town code, specifically under 255-550, affordable housing development, in which what we would like to do and recommend, and let's see if the town board would like to move forward with this, and I can bring it to a work session if you give me some guidance here. We would like to match the density that is allowed within the county code to the town code, to the amount of properties are allowed in an affordable housing overlay district to match the county code right now. The county code says the maximum, and again, doesn't mean it's going to be built, would be 4 per acre. And I'm interested to see if the town board would be interested in me putting together a presentation to allow for that matching for the town code now to match the county code, which will allow 4 lots per acre in only affordable housing overlay districts. I don't know if you had any discussion on that, and if so, I can develop that and bring that back to the town board in a pretty short time frame.
Well, that's certainly one of the things that we've been considering, and I think I can't speak for all the other board members, but there has been some consensus among some about that effort. And again, you know, it's something that could be implemented if the particular property supports that. But having that flexibility is important, I think, in order to meet the dramatic need that we have.
I'm completely in support of it. I thought it was something we had already agreed to, actually, and that we were going to be moving forward with.
Okay, so
up to 4 per acre.
Yeah.
If the board is comfortable, what I'm going to do is I'll bring it to the town board. Maybe I might be able to get it all set and ready for next Tuesday. Again, any type of change to this legislation would go through a public hearing. But again, I want to make sure we just approach it to the public in a work session. So I'll prepare that for a work session. I'll let your office know, Peter, that we'll put that on or pencil that in. And
Great, David. Appreciate it.
I thank you for that. And with that,
who's going to write that legislation? And if they could be on the CHOF meeting, which is this Thursday, that would be.
Okay, so Jen Nigro from the attorney's office and Eric Chance will be working on that. They are both part of that work.
Okay, so Eric is on our committee, so he can fill us in on that as well.
He'll be preparing that, and any type of secret determination would have to be also then too. So
yeah, so I want to go back. I know that the CHOF had recommended that a while ago, and the other issue was getting which 7 acres we're going to be talking about on 395. How is that moving forward, or is that moving forward?
So we're targeting the area that works within what the request of some of the neighbors, and adding a buffer to the western and northern area, and that the development would be located in the eastern and southern areas of the property on there. But we can't decide on what the development would be until we decide on what the yield is going to be, and then we would have to go out for survey and engineering work. So that's one of the next steps that we have to determine on there, based on the yield. So we have to determine what the yield is going to be, then we'll determine what the design will be.
Yes, I think the first step is to make to hear those amendments to the density, and once that's passed, codified, then that will inform, I think, the distribution of those units throughout the property. Again, I think we heard from the neighbors to the west who were asking that we reserve a portion on the northern part of the property to be consistent and to join the additional undeveloped areas adjacent. And certainly we want to keep a buffer from the highway as well. So within those areas, I think there's more than enough space for a 7-acre project.
That's correct. And that's what I have for my liaison report. And again, Sylvia, if you want me to join in on that discussion with you, it would be my pleasure at CHOF also.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Thank you, David. Sylvia?
I'm going to start with the COVID numbers, although we moved our business committee meeting till tomorrow instead of last Wednesday. I do have the numbers from Robert Ross that are up to date as of this morning. COVID for Southampton Hospital is 28. 5 are in ICU. 1 is on a ventilator. In Stony Brook Hospital, we have 235 COVID patients. 28 are in ICU and 19 are on ventilators. In Eastern Long Island, there are 4 COVID patients, none in ICU. So it gives us a little bit of a perspective of what's happening out there, sadly. So I just wanted folks to know those numbers, and the town board also to know those numbers. The Wayne-Scott CAC met this Saturday, and a big thank you to Councilwoman Kate Rogers for attending the meeting. It was 3 hours and 15 minutes long, and I really appreciated it for her responses concerning South Fork Wind. There were about 45 people in attendance, give or take, depending on what time and how many were on it at any one time. As folks may know, she is the liaison to South Fork Wind, and she was able to answer a lot of questions from the group. Again, thank you, Kate, for attending. They felt that communication between South Fork Wind and the town and the residents is very important, and we will continue to have that communication. They were glad to see that a compliance officer will be at the construction site. They had a question, will the town also provide someone to overlook compliance during construction? The airport came up, airport issue. It was also discussed, and they're anxious to know details. any movement, etc., on airport issues. They would like to remind the board that any changes that are going to be made to the airport need to be meaningful, not just a nod to a certain issue, but they need to be meaningful for relief, both noise and environmental. Beach parking at Beach Lane was also discussed, and David, you and I might want to get together on Beach Lane. They had a long list that was presented by a subcommittee they would like to see things that happen there, although we know that the space is a very, very small space. David, if you and I could get together with planning, maybe Barnaby also, to see an overview of where the right-of-way are, where our, and goes perfectly into what you were doing, David, with trying to stake out exactly what the town owns and where, if there is some ability to either to improve that parking lot down there.
It'd be my pleasure to take a field trip with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Again, I'm going to reiterate what David said at least 2 or 3 times. We need to say this, that the trustees are going to open or be on the beach at Georgia Pond at the opening. And there will be heavy equipment that will be in the Beach Lane parking lot and then eventually on the beach. This has nothing to do with South Fork Wind. This has to do with a regular opening. They have a permit from the DEC, which is a 5-year permit. So please don't mistake it for, and don't send us emails, please, that South Fork Wind is doing something that they're not supposed to be doing. This is the trustees. The Wainscott Tree Society also met. The Wainscott Sewing Circle is the parent company, more or less. It's the 501c3 organization that they will be associating with the Tree Society. So they will be writing a vision statement. They're going to be writing a brochure. They would like to conduct a street tree survey, and how to do that and how to pay for it, they're still contemplating. You may have seen some signs and ribbons on trees that are to promote awareness of trees and how much they add to the community character. This is for educating the community and possibly people that are renovating or developing private properties. They want to everyone to please understand how important trees are to all of our communities, but specifically those signs are up in Wainscott to understand that trees are very important to that community as well. Wainscott Hamlet Study, January 27th is the first meeting for the Wainscott Hamlet Study. It will be a meeting by Zoom. The town board, Lisa LaCourie, sent you an updated list of all of those folks that will be on the working committee. The meeting is 7 to 9 p.m. On the 27th, and more details to come as we get closer to the 27th. Been working on some changes to our clearing legislation. I think the first piece of legislation that's going to move forward is going to be requiring surveyors to stake out the clearing lines before a building permit is issued. It's similar to other, particularly the swimming pools. We also are required to have those staked ahead of time before a building permit is issued. And I think that's going to be a standalone legislation. Other things that were discussed were either fees or penalties that are related. That is still sort of an ongoing discussion between the Natural Resources and the town attorney's office. One thing that seems possible, and I know we're going to be starting to look at fees within the town, increasing the fees when you submit a revegetation plan. Right now, it's minimal, and if it's more significant, they think it will also help in any kind of clearing where we have, oh, I'm so sorry, I overcleared moments that we have a lot in the town. So anyway, that is one of those things I think we need to put on our list to look at for the increase in fees. And Carol sent me, thank you, Carol, for sending me that the information that a ban of the sale of balloons with helium or anything lighter than air has been submitted to the state and is now law. So thank you very much for that. We'll be discussing that also within the business committee as well. And that is all I have at the moment.
Thank you, Sylvia. Kate, do you have a report for us today?
Yes, I do. I have had my first meeting was with for the housing initiative, and my assignment on locating town-owned properties and housing opportunities and affordable housing overlays, possible affordable housing overlays. I had a very productive meeting with Tom Rule down in the housing department. He and his department were very helpful in initiating that process. So that has we have begun to look at the properties, both for short-term and what exists now, and also possibilities if the referendum passes in November. So I look forward to bringing that information to the town board and to the public in the future. I met with Kim Shaw, the Natural Resources Director, and we had a discussion on projects that were going on in the Natural Resources Department. We also discussed a proposal, a presentation to the Spring CAC to happen in February to bring information, update them information, and have more outreach on the septic program that's going on and the grants available, the updates to aging septics and for AI systems. We also spoke about working together with a new liaison to the Energy Sustainability Committee, Samantha Klein, who will be taking over that position and establishing relationships, et cetera, there. Energy Sustainability Committee, which I am now the liaison, has their first meeting on January 24th. So I look forward to working with them for projects for 2022. I also met with, attended as Councilman Lee stated, the South Fork Wind Farm pre-construction meeting. It was informative, very informative. It was good to see also many of our departments on the call as well. Jeremy Samuelson was on the call, as was Brian Frank from Planning, and others from all the departments, such as Police, Department of Works, etc. We learned many protocols that are being put into place for compliance. The three main issues that we will be overseeing is safety of workers and their protocols for compliance. And David touched on that there is a company hired specifically to ensure compliance to the state permits. And also outreach, a team of outreach for the public to report any concerns or ask questions or anything that they see that they would like clarified. And the website for that is, the email address for that is info@southforkwind.com. Subsequent to that meeting, I also, as Sylvia said, attended the Wainscott CAC meeting to discuss and to outreach to them to let them know that I will be focused on compliance of not only the state permit, but also our easement agreement with them, which also has information on a performance bond of $1.5 million to be received in cash or cashier's check and good for 5 years for the construction, the insurance demands, and also the oversight that's in our local agreements as well as the state. South Fork Wind Farm, there was a question on their pre-construction work and including developing well testing sites. Actually, there was a very good article in the Star, East Hampton Star, describing that pre-construction process, which will begin on Thursday. It'll only be surveying and continuation of the well testing effort. And again, I repeat that the heavy construction vehicles on the beach have nothing to do with the South Fork Wind Farm. Also, there was a great concern, and we of course share the concern about the mature trees and along the route, and we have gotten more than one assurance, and it is in the an amended update to the construction protocol plan for the Article 7 permit that no trees, mature trees along the route will be disturbed or cut down. The clearing that will happen is along the railroad right-of-way where clearing does happen, and the construction site for the substation on Cove Hollow Road. There are revegetation plans which include not planting anything that's susceptible to southern pine beetle, and having plantings there that are hardy. Also not replacing any kind of invasive species that have been identified. There are surveys available. All this information is public information. It is posted on a state website. You can look at any part of the plan. I've supplied the Wayne Scott CAC with that information, as well as my contact information, the contact information for compliance or for Orsted, and my cell phone. So I hope to continue a transparent process with good communication with the with South Fork Wind, Orsted, and Eversource for the folks down there on that project. Also had a meeting with the Water Quality Committee regarding a project, looking at a pilot project for clustered AI septics in Springs. We had a preliminary conversation on that, and I was also happy that Jeremy Samuelson also attended that meeting. And we will move forward on that and continue to take a look at to see if there's a different way of looking at septics on small lots. And the ability to upgrade those septics. And that is the extent of what I have this week. The Spring CAC doesn't meet until January 25th, and I look forward to meeting them and acting as their liaison for 2022.
Thank you very much, Kate. And I'm going to start off with an update on the testing numbers for COVID. So we've been monitoring here, administering tests for COVID through our vendor pretty much since almost the beginning of the pandemic. I think we started in April of 2020 over at 200 Panago or 400 Panago Place with Hudson River Healthcare. Most recently, we have Care One Concierge, who has bounced back and forth between the former CDCH, Center for Humanity at 110 Stephen Ann's Path and Town Hall. We had to move them back to the Stephen Hand site due to the volume of traffic that we're getting interest in testing. So just to give folks an idea, at the week ending October 7th, we had a 1.75 positivity rate with a total of 57 people being tested that week. So we were really kind of at a low point at the end of the summer, beginning of fall. By the following week, that number had pretty much tripled and then hovered at around 4 to 5% until Thanksgiving. And the week leading around Thanksgiving from the 21st to the 27th, we had 368 people tested. We had an 8.15% positivity rate. So it had doubled again. And from that point into today, it has quadrupled from that 8.15 pretty much. The week ending the 9th of this month, we had a 33.17% in positivity rate. The week leading up to Christmas, with all the travel and parties and whatnot, we had over 1,000 people be tested that week at the facility. And, you know, I know that there has been, because of this incredible surge and the way that Omicron has really taken over Delta in terms of communicability, that we now see that rampant all over the country, really. This is not isolated to here in East Hampton by any means. The infection rates are extremely high everywhere right now. I think the good news is that, you know, we've been able to get vaccines to our local residents, and the access here has been quite good. We've vaccinated over 10,000 doses since we started in February of 21. this most recent group of vaccination boosters. We're at over 1,200. We are going to continue to make those available here at Town Hall. You can go onto our website, sign up for an appointment. We're offering clinics. We have available clinics in February. January is all booked up at this point. February 7th, February 10th, excuse me, and February 16th here at Town Hall from 9 to 4 p.m. And on February 22nd, we'll have a 4 to 8 p.m. Clinic. Again, the importance of being boosted is that you may still get the variant, you may still get COVID, but the symptoms are much less severe. And when you look at the rates of hospitalization, those who are vaccinated and boosted, it's pretty much flatline. When you look at unvaccinated, it's a huge upswing and spike. And, so concerns about serious illness and death are very real for the unvaccinated. And there's still a concern for those who are immune compromised, those who've had organ transplants and have underlying treatments for cancer or whatever, where their immune systems are compromised. So again, be considerate of others as well. Even though you may be vaccinated and boosted, you could still carry the disease. Please wear a mask indoors as required, and we can get through this. I really believe that we're seeing the very end of this in terms of significant waves. And as we move away from the holiday season, I'm hoping to see, and I think some of the numbers have already indicated in New York City, for instance, that the numbers are starting to decline. Keep your guard up for the next several weeks. We have suspended the senior center activities, nutrition program, whatnot, in deference to our most vulnerable community. We'll be discussing the extension of that possibly for another couple of weeks, just to make sure we're keeping people safe. So again, be very careful when you're out and about. Wear a mask, use your hand sanitizer, and we'll get through this last little bad spot just fine. The Town Property Management Committee met yesterday, as David mentioned, and we discussed a number of topics. We had folks who are interested in putting together not-for-profit for the purpose of managing and operating the Brooks Park property on the call. And there were some discussions about that, how to move forward. They have submitted a proposed budget and other documents in support of that effort. Again, we hope to see an agreement at some point in the future with them to operate and manage the property and move forward with renovations and restoration. To further that effort, we've engaged Drew Bennett to do an update to the structural report that he did several years ago, to again identify the existing conditions and what needs to be done in order to preserve and restore that building. As David mentioned, the Carl Fisher House in Montauk has been recently purchased by the town. We're beginning discussions with Montauk Historical as the entity that would manage and operate that building on behalf of the town and for historical purposes. And in the interim, given the nature of that property and the need to have someone in there and managing it, taking care of it, making sure the heat stays on, et cetera, Montauk Historical is willing to do that. We're discussing a temporary agreement that would last maybe the next 4 months or so while we refine a permanent agreement. Duck Creek Farm, there was some discussion about the Edwards House, which is also on the property along with the Jonathan Little Barn, which is the home of the arts at Duck Creek. And they're interested in expanding their license agreement to include the garage as a public assembly space. The garage would have to have a few minor changes made to it, including exit signs and whatnot. Nothing significant and substantial, but they would like to be able to use that space to also have art exhibited during the season in which they do that. That was pretty much it for town property management. There was some further discussion about the pavilion at Boys and Girls Harbor. There's a review going on of pavilions that are on state contract for us to review, and that committee will be reviewing those and making recommendations to town board in the near future. And there was brief discussion about Gardner Mill Cottage and the issue of whether or not you can have sales takes place in a CPF structure. So we'll be doing a little bit more homework on that. That, as you may know, is within the village under a management agreement with them. We had a meeting last week, Thursday the 6th, with the FAA. Kathy Burke-Gonzalez and myself met with the FAA to discuss the transition, the town's plan to move to a private use airport with a prior permission required structure. It was a fruitful and positive discussion, and we hope to be having a work session on January 18th to further discuss that transition. Sylvia and I met with the Sag Harbor Community Housing Trust regarding the Route 114 former Triton Baptist Church property, which the town is planning on developing affordable apartments on that property. The Sag Harbor Community Trust owns 8 cottages immediately adjacent to the property to the north. We had some discussions with them about including their property in a affordable housing overlay, and their interest in working with us and ours and working with them to develop a project there, including all of those properties together. And that's what I have for now. We do have some resolutions to offer.
Resolution 2022-128. It's a payout upon resignation for Dana Kalbacher, office assistant in the town clerk's office, and it's for a gross total of $1,406.40.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
2022-129 is a payout upon resignation for Elisa Moscato. She was the adult daycare program supervisor in the Human Services Department, and it's for a total gross payout of $803.14.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
I'd like to offer Resolution 2022-130. Before doing so, in conformance, we have looked into this. We believe it conforms to the policies in place for department heads, including changes made in 2016. With that being said, I'd like to offer Resolution 2022-130, a payout upon retirement for Edward Michaels, whereas in accordance with the Town of East Hampton's department head employee policy and the policy of the Town of East Hampton, earned vacation and sick time, including personal time, is to be paid out upon retirement for employment, and whereas Ed Michaels will retire his full-time employment as a senior harbor master and department head of Marine Patrol effective December 18, 2021, and audited time records indicate that he has accrued vacation time in the balance of 1,757 hours and accrued sick and personal time balance of 3,507 hours at his currently hourly work rate of $50.68. And now therefore be it resolved that the Finance Office will is authorized to issue a check through payroll for the appropriate payroll account for accrued vacation time of $89,041.07 and accrued sick personal time in the amount of $177,727.40 for a gross total of $266,768.47 payable to Edward Michaels as his final payout. Thank you very much, Senior Harbor Master Chief Edward Michaels, for your dedication to the town.
I agree. Second.
And I just before we vote, I just want to say this is one of the most dedicated employees I've ever run across in the history of the town, who's put in countless hours, has been always available to me and other town board members.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what time, day or night, holiday, after midnight, whatever it was, always there. Can-do guy, going to make it happen. Someone we've relied upon so heavily, and really just a model employee. Although I doubt few will ever reach and attain that level. He's just really an extraordinary human being. So we thank you, Ed, and we're glad that you're going to stick around a little bit on a part-time basis for the next period of time. But congratulations on your retirement. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2022-131 is to appoint part-time heavy equipment operator in the sanitation department, John Krem, and at an hourly rate of $24.79 per hour to be paid bi-weekly, effective January the 10th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2022-132 is to increase the 2021 cap for the Raynar Group. This is to retain professional engineering services of Vincent Gardiello and the Raynar Group, originally not to exceed $20,000 by Resolution 2021-961. It was increased in Resolution 2021-1107 to $25,000. It's been determined that the cap should be increased for the end of year expenses to $30,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 2022-133 is payout upon resignation of Lauren Steinberg, and her payout for 47 vacation hours and 3.94 compensatory hours, for a gross total of $1,561.13. And good luck to Lauren.
Second.
I just want to say here's another really terrific employee. We're sorry to see her go. We thank her for all her contributions here to help us move forward on our sustainability and renewable energy fronts. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Carried.
Resolution 2022-134 is to accept bid EH 21-044, transportation and disposal of non-recyclable solid waste, used tires, and construction and demolition debris. It's gone to Winter Brothers Hauling of Long Island, LLC. And disposal of items number 1, which is non-recyclable waste, at $109.87 per ton. Item 2 is used tires at $225 per ton. And item 3 is construction and demolition debris at $109.87 per ton.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
And I have a resolution 2022-135, and this is to authorize payment to reimburse John Jolnicki. And the town attorney's office has a petty cash receipt dated 2020 that has to be paid to John Jolnicki, but was never submitted for reimbursement. And this resolution resolves that the town will pay petty cash receipt in the amount of $46.25 to John Jolnicki upon a properly submitted voucher. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Peter?
Yes, that would be me. Resolution 2022-136, 2021 budget modification for the airport. This is moving from part-time salaries in the amount of $615 to light and power in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 137 is 2021 budget modification for the airport. This is moving from unappropriated surplus in the amount of $120,000 to outside professional in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed, carried. 2022-138 is a 2021 budget modification for the town attorney, and that would be moving $165,000 from unappropriated surplus and $2,800 from land acquisition of land to outside professional in the amount of $165,000 and online law services in the amount of $2,800.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried. 139 is payout upon retirement of Carol Selke. And that is resolved that a check be issued from the appropriate payroll account for vacation time in the amount of $5,661.97 and sick time in the amount of $25,848.11 and personal time in the amount of $1,969.38 for a gross total of $33,479.46 to Carol Selke as a final payout.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried. Resolution 140 is to appoint Kim Shaw ex officio to the Montauk Wastewater Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 141 is to amend the 2022 Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee. And this is resolved that since the town board does hereby resolves to reserve a spot on the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee for a representative from CCUM at a future date, as the current member, Kate Rozzi Snook, will be leaving.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 142 is a resolution to accept the proposal of Drew Bennett Professional Services for Brooks Park. And that was not to exceed $2,000. And again, this is for the update of structures report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried. Resolution 2022-143 is to amend the CSEA Schedule A in the 2022 adopted budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I thought you were going to read all those names.
No, I wasn't. It's 3.5 pages. Unless you really want me to.
No, I'm only kidding. I want to have
And all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 144, and that is to reauthorize the repurchase of a home in Whalebone Woods. Resolved that the supervisor is authorized to repurchase the house currently owned by Charles and Francis McConnell, located at 23 Macalena Street in East Hampton, according to the formula contained in the covenants and restrictions, filed with subdivision at a cost of $502,266, calculated by taking the appraised value of $750,000 and subtracting 60% of the land value, $232,200, and 3% administrative fee of $15,534 plus closing costs determined by the town attorney paid. And resolve that town's desirous in reselling the house and leasing the land pursuant to a 99-year lease for $363,000 plus the cost of any improvements thereof to form assumable mortgage and investing $139,266 in the property for affordable housing purposes from the Community Housing Opportunity Fund. That is to increase also the sales of property by $525,000, increase purchase of real property by the same amount. The town will be investing $139,266.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carry. Resolution 145 is to appoint police officer in the East Hampton Town Police Department, Ross Hamilton. And that is at an annual salary of $58,563.16. And that's effective January 16, 2022. Welcome
Second.
aboard, Ross.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried. And does anyone else have resolutions to offer?
No.
I make a motion that we go into exec session for advice of counsel and contracts. I think that covers all of the issues.
Second.
And
145.
it's 145, 230. Sound good?
Yes.
Great. John, do we have times with any of the attorneys that are joining us?
No, not that I'm aware of. I think you just they didn't indicate they wouldn't be available at any specific time. So I think whenever we're ready. Should I alert them to 2:30?
So we'll reconvene at 2:30, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's carried. I will send the link shortly. Enjoy your lunch. Stay safe, be well, everyone.
Could we just, is it possible to get, we're off the air, Jason?